Now, the lecture has begun, and you are taking your notes any way that you want to do. We all have different ways of taking notes, but you do that completely in the record column. And every time you see a change in a concept, you leave 1, 2, or 3 blank spaces in between your notes. And it might seem like a waste of time because you're recording in this one column, you're leaving the other column empty, and then you're leaving 1 or 2 blank spaces. I even signal when to do this with the PowerPoint. When you see a slide change, leave a blank line. So I try to mirror everything that with the system itself with what you see in class to make it the easiest to retain later on. So you go through the whole presentation and you've taken notes on the whole presentation only in that one side. I'm curious how many people look at our notes right after class? My faith has been renewed. I was a student once and I used to live by the credo, why do today what I can put off till tomorrow? Anyone here live by that? All right, so right after class, you look in that little column that says reduce. You look at key terms or key concepts and you write 1 or 2 words to remind yourself in the reduce column. So you look at the record column, that block of text, and you shrink it into 1, 2, or 3 key words in the reduce column. You with me so far? Kind of what you're doing is creating flashcards without the cards. You're doing them on one page. The next would be the reflect. So if we were to look at 6 steps here, I've talked about record, reduce, and then reflect. What reflect means is that you look at each block of notes. If there are questions you have about it, something was not clear, you write a little note to yourself in that empty line that I said that you should leave. If something connects to an experience, it helps you remember something. Or if there's something that you've got to do that week that you got to remind yourself, you can put that in there too. All right, I tend to live by Post-it notes. All right, but you can put it right in your notes too. It just causes you to think about it once again. Is there anything that's not clear in this? You then move on to recite. The recital, this is to some degree rote, in that you cover. Imagine this has just 2 columns now, and this is the line. By covering the record column and looking at the reduce column, by looking at that word or words, can you recall what was written? What notes you took? Can you recall the ideas? Once you have the concept down, you can make a little check by it, a little smiley face, or you can use highlighters or whatever, different colors to code your level of comprehension. I used to use a 3-number system. All right, number 1 meant it was done. Number 3 meant I still had to work on it. Now this is going to sound like, God, this is a lot of attention. What you are doing is you are spreading out the amount of time that you would spend on an all-nighter over a longer period of time. You're spending the same amount of time, but it's not all at once. That's why it takes discipline. So you do that at a regular basis by reviewing the concepts that you don't understand, and then the day before, the night before, and even the morning of doing a recap. So that when you walk into an exam, you feel confident and you will tend to retain more information. Now, has anyone here, and myself included, ever pulled an all-nighter? You know what an all-nighter is? Or crammed for an exam? Show of hands. Mine's up, I got 2 of them. What are things we do when we cram for an exam, or when we're pulling an all-nighter?
Spread all the books out, all the notes, and have a whole table full of everything.
All right, so we've already got things in a confusing pile in front of us, all right? That's information overload. All right, what else?
Coffee.
Drink coffee, or tea, or ginseng, or no-dos. They had this stuff when I was in school. It was called Jolt Cold. It was twice the coffee, 3 times the sugar, and then we used to slam no-dos into it too. All right, so have you ever seen that Too Much Coffee Man
Yes.
cartoon? All right, that's kind of what that reaction is. One of the things about caffeine that I learned in biology, caffeine interrupts the nerve synapses that are involved in transmitting memory. So you're drinking caffeine to stay up, while at the same time destroying your short-term memory. All right, what else do we do?
Don't sleep.
You don't sleep. Sleep deprivation totally destroys memory. It makes people dumb. Matter of fact, they do that in prison camps. Why would we do that to ourselves? What do you think your teacher's doing to you? No. Sleep deprivation destroys short-term memory. 2 strikes. And then we're squeezing 8 weeks of information, if it's a full semester class, into a short amount of time. If you've ever seen LeBron's basketball player, have you ever seen his feet? This guy can ski without skis easily. Now some people can do it anyway, right? His feet are like that. They're big. Can you imagine trying to put his foot into a baby slipper? That's what you're doing. That much information into that small of a size. Information overload destroys short-term memory. Where if you spread that same amount of time over that, in this case, 3 days before your exam, or 6 or 7 weeks before an exam, the same amount of time, you'll retain it better. The system works. I guarantee it. And I didn't just go from probation to president's list. I've tutored with it. And pulled students out of D's and F's into B's, C's, and A's. But it is a discipline. If you use it, I guarantee it works. I know I sound like a prophet for the Cornell note-taking system, or a disciple of. But I do believe that it is one of the best out there. And if they're teaching it halfway around the world to 8th graders, it must be something to it.